What is going on, everybody? Wally back with another video, and in today's video it's a little bit different. We're talking about something very close and dear to my heart, and that is the Crucible. I've been asked a couple times to do sort of a tips and tricks series in the Crucible for Destiny's PvP, and I think I'm going to start that with the class breakdown as episode 1. So in this little breakdown, we're going to go over the standard movement modes available to every class, and then of course the class supers and sort of how they affect each other in a semi rock paper scissors fashion. So without any further ado, let's hop right into it with the movement modes, and I hope you guys enjoy this. In terms of movement modes, the number one movement mode is blink. At least in my opinion, and in practice it seems to be the most effective. Of course there are other choices there. Mainly for the Titan class you have the catapult, and that is bound on both the striker and the defender. And of course the Sunsinger Warlock has focus burst. Now the reason for using blink over a glide movement mode, again the rationale would be that using glide in PvP is a surefire way to make yourself a target in most situations, and oftentimes you take yourself completely out of cover. Blink alleviates this. In a way, you disappear and reappear at two separate points on the map, and you're also given certain invincibility frames for maybe a second, half a second, depending on it. There are often times you will get caught pre-blink where you think you have blinked and you will get killed by a shotgun or some sort of damage burst weapon, and this is often due to server lag and player rendering more so than blink itself. Again, I would say blink is probably the most useful perk when evading and moving through the map, as most players have a very difficult time tracking opponents, especially when they disappear and reappear on their screens. With that stated, moving through maps is arguably one of the most important, if not the most crucial version of tactical gameplay offered within Destiny. Most maps are small, there's some bigger ones out there, but generally, if you play Control or even Rumble, most of these maps are very small, but often, most areas offer several points of entry, either to flags or heavy weapon spawning. And the idea is that if you get bogged down in a certain position, the example here is Asylum on Venus, those two doors going into B. If you get bogged in going in both those doors, there's a middle area and a lower area that you should utilize. The idea in terms of moving through a map is relatively simple. You have to put yourself in the opponent's shoes. If they're in a good position or they're in an advancing position, which angles would they be looking at? If you generally think of it this way, on B doors for Asylum, they're going to be looking at your flag door, either A or C. So think of it hitting them from the side or under or even behind. Flanking an opponent is often much more powerful than engaging them directly in a 1v1. It can be argued often points, especially from most competitive players out there, that while not 1v1ing and shooting your opponent in the back is not as honorable, at the end of the day you're getting the kill, and really what it comes down to is not the player with the better aim, but the player with the better intelligence. And I would argue this for a very long time. This is something that I've always tried to showcase in my gameplay, is that I don't have the best aim, but I like to try to think as tactically as possible. I'm not saying I'm smarter than everyone, but I like to use the intelligence that I've been offered, or at least my experience that I have playing games like this, and really push it to the next level by saying, all right, how are my opponents going to play and how would they react to certain situations? Once you take that into account, you may find yourself outplaying other opponents just by outmaneuvering them. Now at this point, you're probably saying, well, that was some great advice, Wally. You just told me to outmaneuver my opponent to shoot them in the back. Super simple to do. And in reality, it's not. This is going to take a lot of time. I can't even begin to tell you how many hours I've spent at FPS shooters, and many of you who've seen my gameplay, even my stream, would know that I'm still not that good. I'm probably, I'd say, like around above average as a gamer of FPS games. And while I try to pride myself on being someone very good, when I have played the better players in Destiny, I've gotten rocked. So I will tell you that this is going to take a lot of time. My biggest recommendations, of course, would be to recommend learning every single map, its spawn locations, its routes, and its lanes. Know the spawn points for every heavy weapon and special ammo little drop box. Know the timers on those, because the timers are identical for whatever mode you are in. So keep those things in mind. And always think tactically. Don't rush into a situation and die immediately. Those are the biggest things in terms of movement. So with movement out of the way, and that was relatively simple, we're going to hop into the supers. Now the supers are another part of the class breakdown. Now without going into each class's individual perk, because I believe I will do that for another episode, and I'll break down each of the classes in those episodes, Basically, we're going to just start with the standard supers. Now, the supers in this game sort of work like a rock, paper, scissors tactic. And in my opinion, some supers are better than others. And I think a lot of people would agree with that. Now, I'm not going to try to start a debate here and call a class overpowered. I'm going to try to avoid that and offer you the pros and cons of Destiny supers. So the way supers operate in this game is they are the bread and butter. They operate as the rock, paper, scissors system of Destiny. Unless you're a hunter, and then you have dynamite, and you basically poop on everyone. Even though I said I wasn't going to do that, I'm sorry. That's the only one I'm going to do. I apologize. Anyway, we'll get back into the real bread and butter of this. With that outburst out of the way, we're going to hop into the Hunter Supers. Now, the Hunter Supers are considered mobile supers for a few reasons. The main reason is that they offer you the ability to activate them and then, of course, move through a period or portion of the map relatively easily, finding your targets at a certain point. Now, they live up to the Hunter name in essence. They are counterable by pretty much every other super, especially the quotable Panic supers, which are offered by the Voidwalker and, of course, Titan Striker. Now, the Hunter supers are always counterable by weapons and heavy weapons, and of course the one-off supers from the other classes. But of course, this depends on a few things. You can be very effective with this, but generally from my very limited experience with the Hunter, you will always run a few kills with your super if you use it properly. And it's incredibly useful to clear out heavy ammo spawns and of course flags when no one else has their super. Now, the pros and cons here of Hunter supers is that they are not panic supers. They're very situational, and oftentimes you'll have to use them behind cover because generally there's a few frames of animation where you are vulnerable to attack from enemies. So keep that in mind. They are very, very powerful, but they are suspect to the panic supers and a few of the animation lock-ins that you have to see. Keep that in mind throughout the Hunter supers, but personally, I would say they are the most powerful when used in the right context. Of course, that argument can be made for the other supers, and hopping in next, we will talk about the Titan supers. Titan was the first class that I ever played as Destiny. It's a class I played in the beta, and I still love the class, and I have a deep respect for any players still playing it in PvP and really rocking it in PvP. There's a couple good Xbox players and PS4 players, from what I've seen, doing a great job with that class, meaning that it is possible for other players to do the same. But breaking it down, the Titan supers are pretty simple in terms of what they can do and what they can't do. Now, the Striker super is a one-off ability, often dubbed the Fists of Panic, for the way it is utilized in PvP. And I wouldn't disagree, because when I had the Titan super in my hands, I would often just kill one person if I wasn't sure I was going to win that gunfight. It's not going to make you any friends, but it can save you in certain situations. The Striker super can also be used to cut opponents off of heavy weapon spawns and, of course, cut them out of their flag captures, as it does cover a large area. And when utilized with the right perks, you do become somewhat invincible when using the super. So keep that in mind. It's a very good one. The other Titan super, of course, is the Defender Bubble. Now, the Defender Bubble can be utilized very effectively by the right players, but oftentimes it is more useful when playing in a team setting, such as 3v3s on Salvage, or even 6v6 in certain control game modes, or even Clash. But I recommend really using this one with your friends. This is not a perk or even a setup you want to use with randoms unless you are very comfortable with getting Weapons of Light or Blessing of Light in there to be utilized during gameplay. It's a utility super first and foremost, and it can be countered by all the other supers. So keep that in mind. It can be very effective with the right equipment and perks set up upon it, but it is arguably the weakest super in the game. Last but not least, we have the Warlock. Now, the Warlock supers are broken down in two separate ways. The first way is the Voidwalker comes in two forms. The standard, I lob these balls of purple at you and you die, and I have this long spear and you die from range if I don't miss and you don't move. While Void Bomb has different forms, in my personal opinion, Vortex is the most useful, as it leaves an AoE effect on a flag or an area where the super detonates. That can be very useful for you as a player. Lance, on the other hand, is the long-ranged ability. It gives you a little bit more range and much more speed in terms of attacking opponents, and that can be very useful for you as well. Oftentimes, Void Bomb is considered another panic super akin to the Titan Striker's Fists of Panic, and I want to keep this one really short and succinct, but you can use this as a panic super, although I wouldn't recommend it. I really would recommend that the Titan super under the Striker and the Warlock super under the Void Bomb be used to counter gunslingers Titan bubbles, and of course blade dancers and even sun singers more than anything else, rather than be used to clear flags. Now of course you can use them either way, it's up to you, but again, I would consider these sort of as pocket shotguns in a way. You hold them for a certain period of time and then you utilize them when you need to. Finally, you have the Sun Singer Super, and this one can be very useful. Now, there's two different forms of this one that are used most often in PvP. One is the Fireborn or the Phoenix, and of course, one is the Radiant Skin. Personally, I would have to say Radiant Skin is much more useful. While you can catch opponents off guard with Fireborn, and it can be useful in certain situations, Radiant Skin offers you much more mobility and damage reduction, especially when coupled with a heavy weapon ammo phase. It adds a certain meta to the game that is often not seen by a lot of players, and it allows you to survive a couple extra things that you may not normally survive, and allows you to stay on the field longer, dishing out more grenades, more damage, and relatively more orbs for your teammates. This, in essence, has been the starter episode for a series that I want to continue. I want to do one of these a week. Next week, I'll probably start tackling the classes themselves individually and going into equipment, what's more useful in terms of loadouts, in terms of weapons, perks, stat balancing, things like these. And if you guys want to see more of these videos like this, please let me know. As obviously, as time goes on, I'm going to refine these a little bit more. I was sort of working with about half a script on this one. So if more script is something you guys want in the future, please let me know. If you guys want me to shorten them and keep them a little bit shorter and succinct, please let me know as well. Comments, criticisms are always valid in the chat. Please let me know what you guys think. And as always, if you guys enjoyed, thank you for being here and hope you guys have a great day. I'm out. Peace.